In the quiet village of Marembe, there lived twin sisters named Amina and Zuri. They were born only a few minutes apart, yet they seemed like one soul in two bodies. People in the village often said that if you saw one, the other could not be far behind. They played together, studied together, and even dreamed about the same things. Their laughter often filled the air like music, soft and warm, spreading joy to everyone around. Their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kamau, were proud of them. They had recently moved into an old family house near the hills, a big home that once belonged to their grandparents. It was a beautiful place, with tall trees surrounding it and a small stream flowing nearby. The air smelled fresh and the hills looked golden when the sun set behind them. To Amina it felt like a dream come true. The first few weeks were peaceful. The twins helped their mother unpack boxes, clean the rooms, and plant flowers in the garden. Every evening they would sit by the window and watch the fireflies light up the night. Life felt calm and simple. But as days turned into weeks, Amina began to notice something she could not explain. Zuri was changing. At first it was small things. She forgot to say her morning prayers, something she had never missed before. Then she stopped playing the songs she used to love. When Amina asked her why, Zuri just smiled and said she didn't feel like it. Her smile, though, was not the same. It was softer, slower, and a little too quiet. One afternoon, while Amina was reading under the mango tree, she saw Zuri standing near the window, staring at her reflection in the mirror. She wasn't brushing her hair or fixing her clothes, she was just staring. Amina called her name, but Zuri didn't answer. She just kept looking at herself, her lips moving as if she were whispering to someone. Later that night, Amina asked her what she had been doing. Zuri blinked and said, "Nothing, I was just thinking." Her voice sounded calm, almost too calm. Amina wanted to believe her, but something deep inside told her that wasn't true. The next morning, Amina woke up early to help their mother prepare breakfast. Zuri usually joined her, but that day she didn't come out of her room. When Amina went to check on her, she found Zuri sitting on the bed, talking softly to herself. Her tone was gentle, but her words made no sense. It was like she was answering someone only she could hear. Amina stepped closer and said, "Zuri, who are you talking to?" Zuri turned around, smiling faintly. "Just myself," she said. "Sometimes I like to talk out loud." Amina nodded slowly. She didn't want to upset her sister, but a small shiver ran down her spine. Zuri never used to talk to herself before. That evening, when their parents were out visiting neighbors, the twins stayed in their room. Amina was drawing by the lamp while Zuri sat by the mirror again. The lamp light flickered a little and Amina looked up. She saw Zuri's reflection smile, even though Zuri's real face was still and serious. Amina blinked, thinking it was just her eyes playing tricks. But when she looked again, the reflection's smile lingered for a heartbeat longer than it should have. She didn't say anything, not that night. But she couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet and she kept hearing small sounds, soft whispers like someone talking behind the walls. Every time she turned, there was nothing there. When she finally drifted off, she dreamed of a dark figure standing behind Zuri's reflection, watching her. The next day, Amina tried to tell her mother. But Mama Kamau just laughed gently and said, "You girls have big imaginations. Maybe you're just tired from all the moving." Amina didn't argue, though she wished her mother would listen more carefully. Over the next few days, the strange things continued. Zuri would sometimes wake up at night and walk around the house. Amina followed her once, quietly stepping behind her bare feet. Zuri stopped by the big mirror in the hallway and whispered, "Are you still there?" Then she laughed softly, a laugh that didn't sound like her own. Amina's heart raced. She wanted to speak, but her voice froze. Zuri tilted her head as if listening to something, then said, "Don't worry, she doesn't know." Amina gasped and Zuri turned quickly. "Amina," she said, her tone calm again. "Why are you awake?" "I could ask you the same," Amina whispered, trying not to show fear. Zuri smiled faintly. "Sometimes the house talks to me. Don't you hear it?" Amina shook her head, backing away. "You're scaring me, Zuri." Zuri's smile faded, and for a moment her eyes looked empty, almost distant. "I'm fine," she said softly. "Go back to bed." Amina did as she was told, but her heart didn't rest. Days passed. The air around the house felt heavier, colder somehow. Zuri rarely joined her family for meals. She spent most of her time near that same mirror, whispering to her reflection or humming strange tunes. Once, Amina caught her tracing her hand over the glass, as if feeling for something behind it. One afternoon, when Amina came home from the village market, she found the house unusually silent. Her mother was in the kitchen and her father was outside fixing the fence. But Zuri was nowhere to be seen. Amina searched the house and finally found her in their grandparents' old storage room. The mirror from their bedroom had been moved there. Zuri sat cross-legged in front of it, her eyes half closed, her lips moving slowly. "What are you doing here?" Amina asked gently. Zuri didn't answer. Her reflection moved a second later, even though she had stopped speaking. It was only for a moment, but Amina saw it. The reflection blinked out of rhythm. She took a step closer. "Zuri?" Zuri's eyes opened suddenly, and her voice came out quiet and strange. "You shouldn't be here, Amina. It doesn't like when you watch." Amina froze. "What doesn't?" Zuri smiled again, but her eyes didn't match her smile. "The other me," she whispered. Amina backed away, heart pounding. She didn't understand what her sister meant, and she didn't want to. She wanted to believe it was a joke or maybe a dream. But deep down she knew it wasn't. That night she couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Zuri's reflection smiling, even when her real face wasn't. She tried to tell herself it was just her imagination, but she could feel it. The air around her was different now, thick with something she couldn't name. The next morning, Zuri acted normal. She laughed, helped with breakfast, and even teased Amina like she used to. For a moment, Amina thought everything was back to normal. But when Zuri turned to the mirror to fix her hair, Amina saw the reflection glance at her first, before Zuri herself did. And in that silent moment, Amina felt a chill travel down her spine. Something inside her whispered that the sister she loved so much was no longer alone inside her own body. The laughter that filled their home now had an echo, and Amina wasn't sure whose voice it truly belonged to. Zuri began to change in small ways that most people would not notice, but Amina did. She always did. They had grown up together like two sides of the same coin. Amina knew every look, every habit, every mood her sister had. So when Zuri started forgetting little things, it did not feel normal. At first, it was simple things anyone could forget. She forgot where she placed her comb, or left her shoes outside in the rain. Once, she forgot their birthdays were coming. That was strange because Zuri loved their birthday. She would count the days every year and plan small surprises for Amina. But this time when Amina said, "It's our birthday next week," Zuri just looked confused and said, "Oh, right." Her tone was calm, but her eyes looked far away as if her thoughts were somewhere else. Sometimes she called Amina by another name. "Nia," she would say softly, turning her head as if talking to someone she once knew. The first time it happened, Amina laughed. "Who is Nia?" she asked playfully. Zuri blinked, looking puzzled. "I don't know," she said, shaking her head. "It just came out." Amina thought it was just tiredness. The move to the old family house had been long, and there was a lot to unpack. Maybe her sister was simply distracted. She tried not to think too much about it, but every passing day made her feel a little more uneasy. Their new house was old but beautiful. It had wide windows, wooden floors, and tall mirrors in almost every room. The mirrors were ancient, their silver edges faded with time. Zuri seemed drawn to them. Amina would often find her standing in front of one, brushing her hair slowly, her eyes fixed not on herself, but on something behind her reflection. One evening, as the golden light of sunset filled their room, Amina watched Zuri from the bed. Her sister stood at the mirror again, quiet and still. The light reflected softly on her face, but her reflection seemed a little off. Amina frowned. For a second, just a short second, it looked like Zuri's reflection blinked a moment too late. Her heart skipped a beat. She rubbed her eyes and looked again. Everything was normal. Zuri turned around, smiling faintly as if nothing had happened. "Why are you staring at me like that?" she asked. Amina forced a laugh. "Just daydreaming." But that night she couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder. She could hear the wind brushing against the window, the ticking of the old wall clock, and then, Zuri's soft voice. At first it sounded like she was dreaming, whispering words Amina couldn't make out. Amina turned on her side, facing her sister's bed. Zuri's face was half covered by her blanket, her lips moving gently. Amina sat up, straining to hear. The whispering grew clearer. "She still doesn't know." Amina's breath caught. She wanted to believe she misheard, but Zuri repeated it, her tone slow and strange. "She still doesn't know." "Know what?" Amina whispered back without thinking. Zuri's eyes opened suddenly, but she didn't move. Her gaze was blank, empty, and her voice came out softer than before. "Nothing," she said. "Go back to sleep." Amina froze, her body stiff. Her sister's voice didn't sound like her own, it was quieter, heavier, almost like someone else was speaking through her. A moment later, Zuri turned her back and went silent again. The next morning, Everything looked normal. The sunlight streamed through the window, and the birds chirped in the garden. Zuri smiled as if nothing had happened. She hummed while folding their clothes, cheerful as ever. Amina tried to act the same, but her mind kept replaying that whisper. She still doesn't know. Did Zuri mean her? And if yes, what didn't she know? Later that day, while their parents were outside talking to a neighbor, Amina decided to test something. She walked quietly into their room where Zuri was sitting by the mirror again, brushing her hair. Amina stood behind her and smiled through the glass. "You really love that mirror, don't you?" she teased. Zuri didn't answer right away. Her reflection smiled, but her real lips didn't move. Amina's stomach tightened. She blinked hard, and when she looked again, both her sister and her reflection were smiling normally. Zuri finally said, "I just like looking at it. It's old, it feels like it remembers things." "That's a strange thing to say," Amina replied with a nervous laugh. Zuri turned her head slightly, her tone calm. "Don't you ever feel like the mirrors watch us too?" Amina didn't know how to respond. She wanted to laugh it off, but the way Zuri said it made her voice tremble. There was no joke in it. It sounded real. That evening, Amina told their mother again that something was wrong with her twin. Mama Kamau smiled kindly and said, "Your sister is fine, my dear. She's just adjusting. Maybe she's lonely in this big house." But Amina wasn't convinced. That night she decided to stay awake. She kept the lamp low and waited. When the clock struck midnight, she heard soft footsteps. Zuri got up slowly and walked to the mirror again. Her movements were smooth, almost too slow. She stood there whispering softly. Amina stayed quiet, her heart beating fast. Then she heard it again. She doesn't know yet. Amina's skin prickled. She wanted to call out but couldn't. Her mouth felt dry and fear kept her still. Zuri raised her hand and touched the mirror's surface gently. "It's almost time," she whispered. The room went cold. The flame of the lamp flickered. Amina sat frozen watching. After a few minutes, Zuri turned and looked toward her. Her eyes seemed different, darker somehow. "Amina," she said softly, "why are you awake?" I couldn't sleep," Amina stammered. Zuri smiled faintly, but there was something off about it. "You should try. Dreams are better than this." Then she turned back to the mirror. Amina didn't sleep that night. She lay awake, listening to the wind and the quiet sound of her sister whispering. In the morning, Zuri acted as if nothing had happened again. She hummed while making tea, joked with their mother, and asked Amina what she wanted for lunch. Amina stared at her, searching for signs, any sign that she was still the sister she knew. But every time Zuri looked back at her, Amina felt like she was looking at someone she had never met before. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. Zuri forgot more things: where she left her books, what day it was, even the names of neighbors she had met just last week. Once, when Amina called her, Zuri turned slowly and said, "Nia?" again, as if the name belonged to someone dear. Amina didn't ask who Nia was anymore. She was afraid of the answer. One evening, as the sky turned purple and the wind began to rise, Amina caught her sister humming a tune she had never heard before. It was soft and slow, like a lullaby from another time. When she asked where she learned it, Zuri smiled faintly and said, "I don't know, maybe from my dreams." Amina's heart grew heavy. She missed her old sister, the one who laughed easily and never spoke in riddles. Now, every time Zuri looked at her, it felt like she was being studied, like something inside her sister was trying to understand how to pretend. That night, before blowing out the lamp, Amina glanced at the mirror. For just a moment she saw two reflections, Zuri's and another faint shape beside hers. But when she blinked, it was gone. As she lay down, she thought she heard that soft whisper again. "She still doesn't know." Amina pulled the blanket close and shut her eyes tight, hoping when she woke up, her sister would be herself again. The morning sun shone softly through the small window, filling the room with a warm, golden light. The twins' room looked peaceful, books neatly stacked, clothes folded, and a faint smell of flowers from the garden below drifting inside. Amina had decided to clean that morning since their mother had gone to the market. Zuri was still asleep, curled under her blanket, her face calm and quiet. Amina smiled as she swept the floor. It had been a strange few weeks, but she wanted to believe that everything was fine. Maybe she had just been overthinking things. Zuri had been acting strange, yes, but maybe it was just stress. The house was old and the air sometimes felt heavy, it could make anyone uneasy. As Amina bent down to dust under Zuri's bed, her hand touched something soft but firm. She pulled it out and saw a small brown book the size of her hand. It was wrapped in an old cloth, tied carefully like it was meant to stay hidden. Amina frowned. Zuri didn't usually keep secrets from her. She looked at her sleeping sister, hesitated, then slowly untied the cloth. The book smelled of old paper and dust. On the first page, written neatly in Zuri's handwriting, were the words, "My journal. Do not read." Amina bit her lip. She didn't want to invade her sister's privacy, but curiosity pressed harder. Zuri had been acting so strange lately, talking to herself, forgetting things, staring into mirrors for too long. Maybe the answers were here. She turned the first page. At first, the writing was normal. Zuri had written about their move to the new house, how much she missed their old friends, and how she loved the big trees near the hills. There were sketches of flowers and a small drawing of the house. But then the writing changed. The lines became messy, the handwriting uneven. "The house whispers when everyone is asleep," one line said. "Sometimes the mirror breathes with me." Amina frowned. What did that even mean? She turned more pages. The next few entries were worse. "There is a voice in my dreams now. It calls me by another name. I looked into the glass and saw myself smile before I did. It knows when Amina is near. It hides when she speaks." Amina's hands began to tremble. Her eyes scanned faster, jumping from one strange sentence to another. I asked the reflection who it was. It said, "I am you but not yet. Sometimes when I blink it stays. I think something followed us to this house. Or maybe it was always here." She turned the page again and a small dried flower fell out. It was pressed between the sheets like a memory. On the page beneath, Zuri had drawn a mirror, tall and cracked down the middle. Beside it she had written, "There's something living inside the glass." Amina's heart pounded. She wanted to stop reading but she couldn't. Her hands wouldn't let her close the book. She turned another page. "It talks to me at night. It says my name over and over until I answer. It told me to keep the mirror clean. It said it doesn't like dust. When I tried to ignore it, my reflection frowned." The writing got shakier, the ink smudged in some places as if written in a rush, or in fear. Amina could almost feel her sister's panic between the lines. Then she reached the last page. The words were larger now, written unevenly, as if Zuri's hand had been shaking. "If you're reading this, I am no longer me." Amina stared at the words, her chest tightening. For a long moment she couldn't move. She could hear her heart beating in her ears. She wanted to wake Zuri and ask what this meant, but she didn't dare. She looked at her sister sleeping peacefully, her face calm and still. She didn't look like someone who had written such dark words. Yet Amina could not forget what she had just read. Slowly she wrapped the journal again and placed it back under the pillow. Then she sat on her bed, holding her knees, trying to make sense of everything. What did Zuri mean by "no longer me"? Did she think she was sick? Or was she writing about something else, something Amina couldn't understand? That night the air in the room felt heavier. The wind outside howled softly, brushing the curtains. Amina sat by Zuri's bed, pretending to read, but her eyes kept drifting to her sister's sleeping face. She wanted to believe everything was okay, but the words from the journal kept repeating in her mind. "If you're reading this, I am no longer me." Amina watched as the moonlight spilled across the floor. Zuri shifted under her blanket, whispering something. Amina leaned closer. "Don't," Zuri murmured in her sleep. "Don't let her see." Amina's breath caught. "Zuri," she whispered softly. Zuri didn't answer. She turned on her side, her lips moving again. "She's reading it," she said faintly. "She shouldn't have." Amina froze. Her skin prickled and her hands went cold. "Zuri," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. But her sister didn't wake. She just lay there, her face calm, her breathing slow. Amina slowly backed away, her heart racing. She didn't understand. How could Zuri know? She had been asleep the whole time. The rest of the night passed in silence. Amina didn't close her eyes once. She sat on her bed, hugging her pillow, staring at the dark window. Every now and then she thought she saw movement in the mirror, tiny flickers of light, shadows that didn't belong. But when she looked directly, there was nothing there. When morning came, Zuri woke up cheerful. She stretched, yawned and smiled. "You look tired," she said, rubbing her eyes. Amina forced a small smile. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes," Zuri said easily. "I had a dream but I can't remember it." Amina looked at her carefully. "You talked in your sleep," she said quietly. Zuri tilted her head. "Did I?" she asked with a small laugh. "What did I say?" Amina hesitated. "You said that I shouldn't see something." Zuri blinked slowly, her smile fading just a little. "I don't remember," she said softly. The way she said it made Amina's stomach twist. It didn't sound like a lie, but it didn't sound like the truth either. Later that day, while sweeping the floor, Amina kept thinking about the journal. The words echoed in her mind like whispers. Dreams that talk back. Voice in the glass. No longer me. She started avoiding the mirrors in the house. Every time she passed one, she could feel something watching her from the other side. Once, she thought she saw her own reflection blink when she hadn't. That night, she told herself she wouldn't look at the mirror again. She would just keep her head down, close her eyes, and try to rest. But when she turned off the lamp and lay in bed, her eyes kept drifting toward Zuri's side of the room. Her sister was asleep again, her breathing calm and slow. The moonlight touched her face, making her skin look pale and soft. Then, out of the corner of her eye, Amina saw it. The mirror across the room glowed faintly. Her heart started to race. She turned her head slightly, just enough to see Zuri's reflection. Zuri was lying still, eyes closed. But her reflection was smiling. Amina's breath caught in her throat. She looked from the bed to the mirror again. The real Zuri wasn't smiling. Only the reflection was. Amina froze where she sat, too afraid to move, too afraid to speak. And as she watched, the smiling reflection raised one hand slowly, while the real Zuri stayed perfectly still. Amina felt tears sting her eyes. She wanted to scream, to run, to wake her parents, but no sound came out. The days passed slowly, but the strange feeling in the house only grew stronger. Amina began to notice things that no one else seemed to see. The air felt heavier when Zuri walked into a room. The lights would flicker, the wind outside would grow still, and even the birds that usually sang near the window would suddenly fly away. At first, Amina thought it was her imagination. But one morning, while helping her mother feed the chickens, she noticed something odd. Their small cat, Kato, refused to go near Zuri's room. Every time Amina tried to carry him inside, the cat hissed and scratched, jumping from her arms and running away. It wasn't just Kato. The goats, the chickens, even the neighbor's dog avoided that side of the house. When Amina told her mother, she just smiled and said, "Animals are strange sometimes. Maybe they smell something." But Amina knew it wasn't just a smell. It was something deeper, something that made even the bravest creatures afraid. That night, the lights flickered again. Amina and her parents were in the living room when Zuri came in. She didn't say a word, she just walked past them slowly, her face calm and unreadable. As she did, the lamp above their heads dimmed until the flame almost went out. When she left the room, the light brightened again. Their father frowned. "Strange," he said, tapping the lamp. "Must be the wiring." Amina didn't answer. She just stared at the hallway where her sister had gone, her heart heavy with worry. Later, when everyone had gone to bed, Amina stayed awake, listening. The old wooden house creaked as it settled in the night. She could hear the sound of the wind outside and the soft ticking of the clock in the hall. But then, another sound. A whisper. She got up slowly and stepped into the hallway. The whisper was coming from Zuri's room. It sounded like two voices, one soft and one echoing behind it. Amina's feet moved without thinking. She pushed the door open just a little and peered inside. Zuri was standing in front of the old mirror again. The light from the moon made her skin look pale, her eyes empty. She was whispering to her reflection. But Amina could tell, the voice she heard didn't belong to her sister alone. "Who are you talking to?" Amina said softly. Zuri turned around slowly. Her smile was small, strange, and not like her usual smile. It was cold, calm, and distant. "I've always been here," she whispered. "You just didn't notice." Amina stepped back. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. Zuri tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something only she could hear. "I waited," she said, "for someone to see me." She did. "I only needed a voice." The wind outside howled suddenly, slamming the window open. The curtains flew up and the lamp beside the bed flickered. Amina felt her heart beating fast. "Zuri, stop it. You're scaring me," she shouted. Her sister smiled again, her eyes glinting faintly in the moonlight. "Don't be afraid, Amina. It's just the mirror." Before Amina could speak, a sharp crack echoed through the room. The old mirror split down the middle, a jagged line running from top to bottom. A cold rush of air burst out, swirling around them. Amina covered her face as the wind grew stronger. Papers flew off the desk, the lamp fell, and the room filled with a faint white mist that shimmered like smoke. It wasn't like normal air, it moved slowly, almost like it was alive. When the wind finally stopped, the mist floated quietly in the air, glowing with a soft golden light. It didn't feel angry or cruel. It felt sad. Amina lowered her hands and looked up. Zuri was standing still, her eyes wide and blank. The mist moved toward her gently, circling her like a ribbon. Amina wanted to scream, to run, to call her parents, but her feet wouldn't move. The room felt frozen in time. Then the mist began to take shape, faint and ghost-like. A face appeared, old and kind, with eyes that looked both lost and tired. It spoke without words. Its voice came softly inside Amina's mind. "I mean no harm," it said. "I have been trapped here for many years." Amina stared, unable to speak. Her hands trembled. Who are you?" she whispered. The spirit's light flickered softly. "I am the one they forgot. Long ago I lived here. The mirror was my gift, my link to the world. When I passed, my soul stayed. I tried to speak, but no one could hear, until her." It looked toward Zuri. The girl stood silently, her face calm, her eyes glowing faintly with the same golden light. "She listened," the spirit said. "She gave me a voice." Amina shook her head. "You took her voice," she said. "You changed her." The spirit's form shifted, and for a moment, it looked full of sorrow. "I never meant to harm her. I only wanted to be seen again." The light around it flickered like a candle in the wind. Amina could feel its sadness, its loneliness stretching back through the years. She looked at Zuri, who now stood limp, as if caught between sleep and waking. "Please," Amina said softly. "Let her go. She's my sister." She didn't know. The spirit floated closer, its glow dimming. "I cannot stay," it whispered. "But I am weak. I need help to leave." Amina didn't know what to do. She looked around, thinking of what might help. On the floor, she saw the small brown journal she had found before. It had fallen open beside the bed. The last page with Zuri's handwriting faced upward. "If you're reading this, I am no longer me." Amina bent down, picked it up, and held it close to her heart. "You can go," she said firmly. "You've been seen now. You don't need her anymore." The mist shimmered, its edges fading. "Seen?" it repeated softly, almost to itself. "After all this time." The glow grew brighter for a moment, filling the room with a warm light. Zuri gasped and fell to her knees as the spirit began to rise higher, its form dissolving into tiny sparks of gold. Amina watched, tears in her eyes, as the last trace of the light faded into the ceiling. The room went still again. She ran to her sister's side. "Zuri, are you okay?" Zuri blinked slowly, her body trembling. "Amina?" she whispered weakly. Amina hugged her tight. "You're back," she said, her voice breaking. "It's gone now." Zuri looked around the room, her eyes wide and frightened. The mirror lay cracked, its surface dull and lifeless. "What happened?" she asked softly. Amina didn't know how to explain. She just held her tighter. "It's over," she said. "Just rest." But even as she said the words, she wasn't sure. The air still felt heavy, and when she looked at the broken mirror, she thought she saw a faint glow deep inside the glass, like a tiny spark still alive. That night, Amina couldn't sleep. She sat beside Zuri's bed, watching her breathe. The house was quiet again, but every creak made her jump. She thought about the spirit's words, about how it had been trapped, forgotten, alone. She glanced at the cracked mirror one last time. The faint glow had vanished now, leaving only darkness. For the first time in weeks, the house felt calm. But as Amina finally closed her eyes, she thought she heard a soft whisper, gentle, almost like a sigh, drifting through the night. "Thank you." Her heart pounded. She sat up quickly and looked around. The room was empty. Zuri was still asleep, breathing softly. Amina stared at the mirror again. There was nothing there, no light, no shadow, no reflection except her own. She took a deep breath and lay back down, clutching Zuri's hand. The house was quiet. The wind outside had stopped. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was still watching. The next morning came slowly, the light creeping through the cracks of the window as if afraid to enter. The air was still, and a soft silence filled the room. Amina sat beside Zuri, her hand resting on her sister's. Zuri was still asleep, her breathing calm and steady. Her face looked peaceful again, just like it used to before everything had gone wrong. Amina had not slept at all. Her eyes were red, her heart heavy with worry. The events of the night still echoed in her mind. The cracking mirror, the mist, the glowing light, and the strange voice that had spoken through her sister. She kept wondering if it was truly over, or if the spirit had only gone quiet for a while. When Zuri finally woke up, she blinked a few times and looked around the room in confusion. "Amina?" she said softly, her voice weak but gentle. "What happened? Why are you crying?" Amina smiled through her tears and hugged her tightly. "You're okay," she whispered. "That's all that matters." Zuri frowned. Why wouldn't I be okay? She asked. Did something happen? Amina hesitated. She didn't know what to say. How could she explain that her sister had been talking to a spirit trapped inside a mirror? That she had watched her own reflection move differently, seen lights that shouldn't exist, heard whispers that came from nowhere? It's nothing, she finally said softly. You were just sick, that's all. Zuri nodded slowly. My head hurts, she murmured. And I had such strange dreams. I saw a woman in the dark. She kept saying thank you. Amina froze for a moment but forced a smile. It's just a dream, she said. Don't think about it. But Amina knew better. She could feel it deep inside her, that the woman Zuri saw wasn't from a dream. The spirit had left, yes, but some part of it still lingered. Later that day, Amina went to see Mama Lela, the oldest woman in Murembe village. Mama Lela lived near the river in a small clay hut surrounded by herbs, candles, and wind chimes. Everyone in the village went to her for advice, blessings, and healing. When Amina arrived, Mama Lela was sitting on her porch, stirring a pot of herbal tea. She looked up as Amina approached and smiled gently. Ah, my child, she said. Your face tells me something is wrong. Amina sat beside her and told her everything, from the moment Zuri started acting strange to the night the mirror cracked. Mama Lela listened quietly, nodding slowly, her old eyes thoughtful. When Amina finished, she said, The spirit you speak of is not evil. It was only lost. Sometimes when a soul cannot find peace, it clings to the place it once loved. But such spirits need help to cross over. Amina looked down. I tried, she said softly. I told it to go. It said it wanted to be seen. Mama Lela smiled kindly. And you did just that, child. You saw it. But to set it truly free, you must bless the mirror. You must close the door it used to walk through. Amina frowned. How? The old woman stood up slowly and went inside her hut. She returned with a small clay bowl filled with ashes and herbs and a white candle. Tonight, when the moon rises, Mama Lela said, you will light this candle in front of the mirror. Sprinkle these ashes and speak the blessing I will teach you. Call upon the spirit, thank it for leaving, and wish it peace. Do not show fear. Spirits can smell fear. Amina nodded, listening carefully. Will it come back? She asked. Mama Lela shook her head. No, my dear. Once it is blessed, the mirror will become only glass again. The past will rest. That night, when the moon rose bright and full, Amina prepared everything in Zuri's room. Zuri was asleep again, peaceful and quiet. The broken mirror stood against the wall, still cracked but now clean. Amina placed the candle in front of it and lit it. The small flame flickered gently, casting soft light across the room. She took a deep breath, opened the small clay bowl and sprinkled the ashes across the mirror. The air filled with the smell of herbs and smoke. Then, in a quiet voice, she began to repeat the words Mama Lela had taught her. Spirit of light, spirit of time, you have been seen, you have been heard. Go now in peace. May your soul find rest. May this mirror hold only reflection, not memory. Her voice shook slightly, but she kept speaking over and over. The candle flame wavered, and a small wind moved through the room. For a moment, the cracked glass shimmered softly. Then Amina saw it, a faint golden glow deep inside the mirror, just like before. But this time it didn't frighten her. It felt warm, calm, almost kind. The glow moved slowly upward, then faded completely. The candle's flame steadied. The air grew still again. Amina smiled. She felt tears in her eyes, but they were tears of relief. She whispered, "Thank you," to the empty air. The next morning, Zuri woke up cheerful. She didn't remember anything about the strange nights, the voices, or the mirror. She only said she felt rested, like a heavy weight had been lifted off her chest. Their parents noticed the change too. The house no longer felt heavy or cold. The lights stayed bright, the animals came back, and laughter returned to their home. Life slowly went back to normal. Amina still kept the cracked mirror in the room, even though her mother told her to throw it away. It's just broken glass now, her mother said. But Amina shook her head. It's a part of us, she replied. Sometimes at night, when the moonlight hit the mirror, Amina would glance at it and see something strange, 3 shadows instead of 2. Hers, Zuri's, and one more faint and soft. She never felt afraid. The extra shadow never moved or made a sound. It simply stood beside them, peaceful and still, as if watching over them. Zuri never noticed. She would laugh, talk, or brush her hair, and the 3rd shadow would fade quietly into the background. Amina, though, always noticed, and whenever she did, she would smile softly and whisper, "Thank you for watching over us." One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Amina and Zuri sat outside their home, watching the fireflies dance. Zuri leaned on her sister's shoulder and said, "It's strange, isn't it? How quiet everything feels now." Amina nodded. "Quiet can be good," she said. "It means peace." Zuri smiled. "I keep dreaming of a woman," she said after a pause. "She stands by a river. She never speaks, but she always smiles at me." Amina looked at her gently. "Maybe she's happy now," she said softly. Zuri didn't understand, but she smiled anyway. "Maybe," she said. As the days passed, the house filled with warmth again. The laughter that had once disappeared came back stronger than before. The mirror stayed in the corner, cracked but harmless. Sometimes, when Amina walked past it, she would catch a glimpse of a faint golden shimmer in the corner of her eye. It never lasted more than a second, but it always made her heart calm. She learned to stop fearing what she didn't understand. She learned that not all ghosts are there to harm. Some just want to be remembered. Years later, when Amina and Zuri were grown, they moved into another house, but they took the mirror with them. They placed it in their hallway where the morning light would touch it every day. Visitors often asked, "Why keep this old broken thing?" Amina always smiled and said, "It reminds us that even broken things can have stories worth keeping." At night, when everyone was asleep, Amina would sometimes see 3 shadows on the wall again. Hers, Zuri's, and one faint, glowing outline between them. And she would whisper softly, "Some bonds never fade."